right, welcome back to it. This is the third installment, everybody. The third episode of the new podcast, Voices from the Edge. My name is Mark, or Mookie if you prefer, alongside Dr. Ivor Weiner.
Hello, everyone. Good to see you.
And Dr. David Boynes. Hello.
Hey, peace, friends.
Hey, peace to you and yours. And of course, Izzy is in the room as well. Izzy, what's in the cup?
Arizona tea.
Oh, lovely.
A little product placement there.
There you go. Caffeine-free, non-alcoholic, I imagine. Also, we're joined today by Professor Ellen Stohl from the Educational and Psychology Department at Cal State Northridge, part of the Commission on Inclusion and Diversity as well. And I know you teach a number of courses. I guess we'll get into that, but thank you so much for taking the time. Where in the world are you right now? I imagine somewhere in Southern California.
I am right now in Southern California, actually just a hop, skip, and a jump away from CSUN, about 3 blocks. Nice to live close to it. But tomorrow I will be on a cruise to Mazatlan, Puerto Vallarta, and Cabo San Lucas doing a diversity shoot for a cruise line. So, it's the big thing now, diversity. So my side gig as an actor and a model and spokesperson paying off in these in this trendy time of using people with impairments to. So
you're going to be on camera on this cruise ship shooting some sort of thing?
Yeah, we're going to be doing their whole diversity campaign, showing that they're accessible in the ports and it'll be fun. It'll be, it's pretty funny. I have to say, get the email because I'm like, can I drive myself to park? And they're like, yeah, your friend can drop you off and then she can park the car. And I'm like, I drive. Yeah. I want to have a little understanding about the ableism assumptions in there. So it was like, I just had to let them know, like, I'll be driving. I don't think my friend can drive my car since I drive from my wheelchair. And if she drops me off, I don't know how she's going to move the car somewhere. So it was just one of those things. As I'm doing diversity with them, I'm also trying to educate them on some of the bias that continues to exist with that, systemic ableism that we often don't pay attention to.
Do you have like a Humvee or something, or a big old van that was converted into your wheelchair car?
No, I actually wrecked a van. That's how I broke my neck. So I really wanted to avoid them. So I'm not a big van person. It's not my personality either. So I have a little Scion. I have a little red Scion that opens up like a DeLorean. The little ramp comes out and it seats me and 4 other people and has the whole hatch, and it's cherry red with daisies all over it. And it is probably one of the only adapted driver's side Scions left in the country because they had some trouble getting them approved for smog and stuff. But I had an old one that I'd had for many years that was silver. And then I scoured the country and found this one in Chicago and snatched it up as quickly as I could.
So it's not custom.
Oh, it is custom. The adaptations.
Well, the daisies are custom.
It's up and it's custom. I mean, I've seen Ellen pull into that parking lot and get out of that vehicle, which it does open like a DeLorean. And the exit and the entrance for you must have some sort of routine down because it's quick and you're in and out of there. But it's quite a vehicle.
It is amazing. I love it. It's quick and easy to get in and out of. I drove a Mustang convertible for the first 20 years of my injury. And then I had my daughter and I had to drop her off at kindergarten and pick her up, and just hauling my bum in and out of that convertible, a Mustang, and then taking the chair apart and throwing it in. It really got to that point where my quality of life was like, I don't want to go anywhere because I don't want to have to do this. And that's when I knew I need to get a car that I can, like anybody else, zip in, zip out, do my things, have fun, and not have to dread just getting in and out of the car. And that's when I found the Scion. And I was so lucky because no, I do not like the big old vans. They don't work for me. I like a small little car because I'm the only person on the road that knows how to drive. So,
yep. You got a custom Back to the Future style.
Yeah. It is. They have great customizations, but the adaptations actually cost more than like almost double what the car costs.
Ellen, I take exception with the BMW drivers. They're really fantastic on the road. They don't even need to use indicators. You know that. They don't use any signals.
Oh, they don't use their magic wand that lets everybody know where they're going. Oh, those are the people that I just want to run over.
You make a big claim there. You make a big claim that you're the only driver, but the BMW folks are.
I always wanted one. So what does that mean for me?
What do you drive?
I always wanted a BMW.
Well, get one.
I guess I am a giant turd.
No, get one. You just don't need to use an indicator, and you don't need to brake.
Right, I'll just turn into a
You'll turn
BMW
into
person.
They're the people that I'm like this. Thumbs up, great job. Because I've learned not to flip off anymore. I now you do the.
So you give the thumbs instead of the traditional middle finger.
Yes.
Professor Ellen Stohl, did you always want to be an educator?
Oh, no. I never in my life imagined I'd be an educator. I wanted to be an actor. When my family moved to LA, I was going to be a theater actor, not a commercial actor. And I spent my summers at South Coast Rep during my high school years studying the craft. And I went into college as a theater major. Unfortunately, after my first semester during winter break, I was driving home late one night. It was the first rain of the season, taking the 57 southbound to the 91 westbound, which is one of those curves that's almost a 360. I hit it going way too fast because at 18, our brains aren't working really well. And I hydroplaned, my van flipped. When it flipped, I smashed my left ulna on the window frame, shattered it. It rolled 3 or 4 times. It was airborne. I came out through where the windshield had been, bent the steering wheel in half with my thighs and landed on my head, broke my neck in 5 places in both my collarbones, and ended up having a spinal cord injury, incomplete quadriplegia. But that changed the whole direction of my life. And I was literally told when I was in the hospital by the Department of Rehab that they would not pay for school if I chose to continue to pursue theater because it was not a viable career for a disabled person. And
wow.
Victim of all the stereotypes myself, didn't even know I had stereotypes, but a victim of the stereotypes, believed them, thought I could be an art major because don't all people with disabilities paint with their teeth or their feet, or they become very artistic, so the movies say, except I tried to be an art major and breaking my neck did not give me any talent. I still sucked at art. So I became an advertising communications major and still tried to pursue a career, and then ended up in marriage family therapy and realized I wasn't good at that. Wasn't my forte, and then fell into teaching as a part-time job at CSUN, being an inclusion specialist, and then got my credential and taught in public and private school for 14, 15 years, and then got pregnant and decided, do not want to be teaching other people's kids when I'm raising my own, and applied at CSUN and have been there. This is my 20th year as an educator at CSUN. So it was, I think everything came together to put me in this position, but it was not something I set out to pursue.
So you wanted to be an actor on stage, maybe on Broadway type of thing. So growing up, was it always sort of the songs from musical theater? Is that what you had been listening to?
Oh, no, I was not a musical theater. I was more Sarah Bernhardt, a very dramatic actress. I wanted to be a very serious, dramatic actress. So my daughter loves musicals and knows all the songs to all the musicals now. But I just wanted to be a theater actress. And I mean, I studied with amazing people at South Coast Rep in a summer program. I was one of the youngest people there right before the summer like 9 months before my accident. And then that sort of shifted everything. And I had to rethink about what I wanted to do. I love teaching. I will say how the path got me there, I don't know, but teaching at the university level to me is such an opportunity to impact students on an individual level, but also then they're going to go out and impact society and students and make a difference. And I just love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but acting hasn't escaped you, right? You are heading to, what was it, Mazatlan?
Yeah, I'm doing a diversity shoot on a cruise ship. And no, my daughter has gotten into it. We've been so fortunate to do a couple of commercials together. We did a Minute Maid commercial together, and we did an episode of Dress My Nest. And then we just did a Nintendo commercial together last year. And that sort of got me back into it. And now I just did a Wayfair ad that's out there and a Kaiser ad that's out there somewhere. I think part of it is because it's not my focus anymore. If I don't get cast, it's not my identity. It's not who I am. So I can approach it with, this would be great. I really enjoy being in the media, mainly because it shows people with impairments as just parents. I mean, a lot of time I'm just the mom. I'm just the parent. I'm just the cafe person eating at a diner, and it's not about the disability. It's just about the diversity of bodies in our society that we don't quite see enough of in the media. So that sort of still others, people with impairments and visible disabilities and invisible disabilities. And I think if we can integrate and have more images in the media, then it becomes more normalized. And I don't get people going, can I touch you? I ain't never seen a disabled person before. And I'd like to, not have people pat me on the head and talk to me really loud and treat me like I can't drive my own car, because they just don't know better.
Ellen, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. One, the time frame of that accident, was that the early 80s, late 80s? When did that accident?
January. That was January 1983. January 20th, 1983. I broke my neck and woke up in the hospital. I was initially paralyzed from the neck down. I had no movement whatsoever because I broke C5, C6, C7, C8, T1. So I am an incomplete quadriplegic. I have no thumb muscles. I have trouble with buttons and earrings. I function more like a paraplegic, and people would think because I use a manual wheelchair with a power assist and I have good upper body movement, but I have a lot of the intrinsics of a quadriplegic. And quadriplegic simply means that all four limbs are affected by the initial injury. So there are walking quads out there, but it's really important to know because there are a lot of internal effects from being a quadriplegic that if you don't know, you could give somebody the wrong treatment and kill them. So it's important to note that simply because people use their arms does not necessarily mean they're just a paraplegic or a hemiplegic. You just don't know. It depends on what was initially injured. So,
yeah, I wanted to ask you just a second thing because I don't want this point to be missed. You made it, and sometimes I don't think people get it. It's all wonderful that people are awake about diversity, equity, and inclusion. But I'm wondering, because you said something that was really important. That is, while we see more images in the media, right? What people aren't paying attention to, and what employers and advertisers and the media folks are not thinking about is you're still trapped in a role, like you said, of the parent, right? It's not, and somewhat limited, right? So it's not about just increasing the visibility, but really placing people in roles that they play in life, right? And to show people that their possibilities exist, with anything. So
to show the capability.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think being seen as a parent is really important because one of the biggest myths or misconceptions about having an impairment or a physical disability is that you don't have sex, that you don't have sex and you can't be a parent. When I was pregnant, everybody thought that I was just fat. It's like, oh, she's just a fat woman in a wheelchair. Or they thought that I had to use the wheelchair because my pregnancy was difficult. And then after my daughter was born, people would be like, they would think my sister was the mother. My sister who's 6 years older, they couldn't put together that no, you can have a spinal cord injury, be a wheelchair user, and have sex and have a kid and have a life. And people, just that assumption that still comes out, like, oh, your friend can drop you off and park the car. It's like, no, I'm the one driving, and that happens all the time. People assume that whoever's with me, simply because I do travel with an assistant, because things aren't accessible out there, and I want the support should I fall on the ground. It would be great to have somebody who can help pick me up, but it's not necessarily because I can't do things. It's because I know how to, what I need to be more independent.
Mm-hmm.
And you get great views at concerts, I would imagine.
At some of them, Santa Barbara Bowl has the best. The biggest problem with concerts and accessible seating is that the HIPAA laws don't allow the venues to ask if you actually need that. So there are people out there that know that they can get the tickets for the accessible seating at a lower price and have great seats, and that they cannot be asked if they're you have to check a box. Yes, I have a disability, but the venues can't ask. And so we go to a number of concerts where there are probably 60 to 70% of the people there do not have an impairment or the need to have the accessible seats. And it's a little frustrating because I can't always get seats with my family. So I wish there was a registry. There's a registry for the national parks that you have to prove that you have an impairment. I have no problem. I think anybody that has a significant impairment would not have an issue saying, yeah, here, put me on this list. And, I don't know, maybe that's too much tracking, but it's better than being frustrated about not being able to get seats at all.
I had no idea. I mean, I never even tried actually to get.
If you don't need them, don't get them.
Do you find that businesses that you frequent or places that you go to for the first time, just generally in the world, do they accommodate sort of the ADA thing quite well, or do a lot of people out there need some help with the accommodations?
I think the physical accommodations, because of the lawsuits and things that are happening, I think the physical accommodations, the actual, we have this seat for you, we have that seat for you, are really well. It's more that the letter of the law is followed because people are afraid to be sued. It is the spirit of the law. So when you have a bar and you have the lowered section of the bar, but it's right by where the servers go in and out of the bar, so you're sitting at the end where everybody's coming in and out, it's not where you can really socialize effectively with other people. So the letter of the law is followed. It's the spirit of the law that I find lacking. People really embracing and, including the individual, not just finding a place for them, but actually including them in the environment, in the event, in the opportunity. So a lot of places do better than others. I think most individuals really try. I think I'm pretty easy peasy. I'm like, yeah, pop me up a couple of stairs. Oh, move this. But, I'll go where there's a venue. There was a venue in LA. We went to see a band and they had all the kegs in front of the little elevator lift. And they had to find people to come move all the kegs so that I could get on the little lift so I could go up. But then they, bought us free drinks. So most people. What club
was that? What show? What club?
Well, that was a while ago. So I don't even, who did we see there?
So you don't even remember.
I don't even remember. That was back in the day. They were giving you, often people will give me free drinks. So that's always, a nice thing, but now I can't drink like I used to. But I do love concerts. I love going. I think that the Hollywood Bowl, the Santa Barbara Bowl, the Ford Theater, everybody's making an effort. And once you get in there, most of the people that work there are pretty kind and open, as long as I'm flexible. I don't expect it to be perfect every time. How do you know if you're not in a wheelchair? You don't always know, but if you're open to listening and working with me, I will be happy. If you want to just be pissy about it and, then we have an issue.
Ellen, I'm getting the sense you've seen a lot of bands. So
yes.
What's been your favorite live musical performance?
I will have to say Harry Connick Jr. At the Hollywood Bowl. He's not a huge band, but he is such a performer. It was amazing. And then cool. I'm old school. I love James Taylor and Billy Joel and Carole King and, Three Dog Night. I saw them down in, it's the club down in San Diego. My husband would know the name. I saw them there. And
David
of course,
Boynes would know all the clubs in San Diego.
I saw Three Dog Night at it used to be called the Wild Animal Park.
Nope, it wasn't there. It was a little club, but they were great. And they let us in early because it was, standing room and they got a great little bar seat and got to see the band.
Something like that.
It's right off the train, right by the train tracks. My husband would
say the Belly Up is right up.
Yes, that's it. That was it. Yeah. It's the Belly Up. That's the one. Thank you, Ivor.
Good job.
I love the Belly Up. And it is one of those venues, Mark, that that if you let them know you really have a mobility impairment, they help you get situated so you're not stuck in the crowds and that you have access. And that to me is the most important thing, because in some venues, people are standing up right in front of you and you're not positioned where if they're all standing up, great. I'm glad they're enjoying the band, but I can't now see because I don't have that option to stand up. So
the Belly Up in Solana Beach, they were more than accommodating. When my wife was very, very pregnant, we went to go see a show and I called them up in advance and I said, listen, she's super pregnant. Can you reserve a couple seats for us? And sure enough, they did. And now I only want to sit down to see a concert. But I can't afford another baby. So,
but you're a Mookie and you could call probably any club in LA.
Yeah, just go backstage and it's fun.
Yeah. And bring us all with you. Still waiting for this invitation.
Well, I would like to make a request to Ellen. The next time your family goes to a concert with the free drinks, do you think I could come along? I could help with the free drinks.
Absolutely. I will let you know. We're good. Mm-hmm. We have the glass animals coming up, but that's mainly for my daughter. So
great drinkster.
A great drinkster. I would love it. We have the glass animals coming up, and we just saw Lord Huron, who I enjoyed a great deal. I'm going to go see the Monkees. So I'm old school. So I got tickets to the Monkees that are coming up at the Greek. And I like it because I know all of the songs and all of the words, and I will sing my heart out. The same thing with Three Dog Night. So I love to go to the old school concerts. I got to see James Taylor, and my daughter was about 8 or 9, and I sent her down with my ticket stub to get him to sign it. And she was just slippery and little enough that she got right to the front of the stage, and he signed my ticket stub. And so that was a big moment for me.
James Taylor's playing with Jackson Browne coming to a city near you.
Oh, I'll have to see them because I love Jackson Browne too. I love his music.
Yeah, that's an interesting duo.
Yeah.
Well, they're different, but I can see that they're, they have that similar feel. It is a great bill. The other artist I really love and have seen a great deal is Ben Harper. I think Ben Harper is just an amazing musician. When he plays the guitar and it's on his lap or whatever it is. I mean, and I got to see him in a theater in Santa Barbara, and I was probably 10 feet from him. And so to really see him play he's just so talented. So I loved him.
Yeah, for sure.
And he's got a great percussionist, Leon Mobley, that plays with him. So
yes. I love
Ivor knows all the drummers because
all the drummers.
Yeah, all the drummers know each other. It's like all the Jews in the San Fernando Valley. We all know each other.
And we know all the jokes about drummers. But I actually have a djembe that's sponsored by him, Leon Mobley djembe. So that's one reason I know. But I don't like Ben Harper. Well.
Yeah, he's Ben Harper is great, and I think a friend of mine knows Leon Mobley as well because the name sounds so familiar. And I got to see Tom Petty. I think it was like literally a week before he passed at the yeah, and that was amazing. And my daughter, who sings, had done a cover of Wildflowers for me. My husband had her in a studio, and for a gift right before that. So then that was actually the first album my husband gave. Instead of flowers, he bought me the Tom Petty Wildflowers album right after we met, because he said that the CD would last longer than any flowers he could buy me, and our relationship would be there forever.
Wow. Flowers would have died. The CD is obsolete.
But the song is still good.
Yeah.
Ellen, he should have bought you an 8-track.
Hey, I had 8 tracks, so...
Did we explain what an 8-track is to Izzy? Izzy, do you know what an 8-track is?
Explain it to me.
I'm not old enough. David is old enough to remember the 8-track.
So just as a reminder, I'm not a boomer, but the 8-tracks are they're little like block cassettes that you put into a machine, and they cut like almost every song in half when they switch tracks. Y'all remember that?
You could only carry about 4 of them with you because they were big.
They were big. They were like video. Mm-hmm. Do you know what a VCR video is? A videotape. That's what the 8-track looked like, but it was for music.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
It's like an iPhone, only bigger.
Does anybody have
more fragile?
You have any of those left around collecting dust in the garage or something?
I think at my parents' house, I think they still have some.
My nephew just got an 8-track player and he does a lot of Goodwill bins and has been collecting old 8-tracks and playing them.
Folks. They're coming back.
I don't think so.
That was the other. What was the disc? It's not an album, but they had that came out for a while. The something discs that looked like
a disc.
The which one?
The laser disc?
Yes, the laser discs that were out. Yes.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Do you know about the Walkman?
I've heard of them. I've never seen one.
I have one if you're interested in borrowing it.
Do you really? A cassette player?
I found it the other night. I found that Sony Walkman the other night. Still works.
That's great. Why bands are coming out with cassette tapes these days? It's like a novelty thing, but have you seen this? Like promotional items for a new record, they'll make cassette tapes. Everybody's doing them now.
Wow.
And nobody has a cassette player anymore, but I guess it's kind of cool.
Ivor has it, so we can all go and listen to his on his Sony Walkman.
There you go. We could all share the headphones.
Yeah.
We used to do in the record store. Remember that? Those nasty COVID-filled headphones.
Oh, yes.
Nobody was worried about germs at that time.
No.
Yeah. Speaking of COVID, Ellen, during the pandemic, was there any music that helped you get through the kind of isolation and lockdown and all that?
I would think listening to some of the new artists, my daughter would play Aurora. My daughter has very detailed playlists that are supposed to tell stories. So I would listen to some of those. Again, going back to those comfort favorites, I really, putting on, I don't like to listen to albums. I will tell you, I like listening to the same artist for an hour to 2 hours. I could do it at a concert every now and then, but albums to me don't make sense. I like a mix of music. So I really enjoy the platforms where I can have a mix, or I can make my own mix and listen to all my music. I think that was one of the biggest things, was spending time and doing my own playlists with songs from all eras and genres and picking them out to sort of match my mood or to uplift my mood. That really made a difference. And they would contain, James Taylor and Oingo Boingo and Aurora and Nathaniel Ratcliffe. And that's nice because I got a nice mix, and I could, it's nice being locked at home because you can spend hours on your playlist and sort of say, this mood is to pick me up, starts out slow, builds, picks me up. This mood is for focusing, and just putting them on. We have music on, I would say 20 hours of the day. Like I get up and play music while I'm in the shower. I have music in the kitchen, music outside. I really have been getting into Pink Martini, the Pink Martini radio. Love all the cultural music that's out there. Find that in the morning with a cup of coffee, really sort of grounding and uplifting. And so I really like to be able to pick. I love those platforms. I don't think I say the name of the platform, Pandora, just that I can say, play this, and they can give me a number of artists that I've heard of and haven't heard of. And if I don't like something, I'm like, skip it. Alexa, skip it. Yep. Alexa, skip it. So I do love that. And that really helped me through the pandemic. I think music is so powerful. I think that it really can help you if you're sad. Just get into that and cry. There are songs that just make you cry. There are songs that make you happy. When I was pregnant, I could only listen to the Rat Pack. Didn't know why, but that was the only thing that I could tolerate for the 9 months of my pregnancy. So I just which is funny because my daughter is the weird such a woke millennial. The
weird food cravings, as well as just the fact that you only wanted to listen to Sammy Davis Jr.
Sammy Davis Jr., Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra. I don't know. Have you ever seen the duet with Frank Sinatra and Elvis Presley? Witchcraft and Love Me Tender. Oh my God. It's such a great duet. It was on, I think, the Frank Sinatra show. Elvis came out, and Frank is singing Love Me Tender, and Elvis is singing Witchcraft. And it's something about that just really powerful. I don't know. That's all I could listen to. And all I ate when I was pregnant was after 8 dinner mints. I had cravings for those and Pez. Other than that, I was sick for 7 out of the 9 months, 24/7.
What kind of Pez dispensers are you working with?
None. I just would like open them up.
Oh, you would just eat the Pez.
Just eat the Pez. Skip the
Vitamin
dispenser. Like I ate so many Pez. I don't even know how my, and then mango smoothies. That was the one healthy thing. Could not eat fast food, but I could hardly keep anything down. I actually weighed 5 pounds less when I gave birth than I had before I was pregnant. So, because I had lost so much weight. Yeah. It was. It was not, and I got a decubus on my tailbone because I had shifted the way I sat. And so all that baby weight was right on my tailbone. And I had to go to the hospital for that. And then when she was born, there's a condition called dysreflexia with spinal cord injury, that if there's a pain stimulus below, a negative stimulus below the level of injury, it can send messages to your brain. So your blood starts pumping and you can stroke out. And we were so careful during the pregnancy and birth, that really careful, all the doctors, that they were aware of it. Nobody told me that when you breastfeed, you have reverse contractions, right? And it's just as dangerous and painful. And so the next night after my daughter was born, I was breastfeeding. I was like, no, don't give me pain meds. I don't want my baby to get it, right? And I at 2 minutes in, I called the nurse and I said, take the baby, get help. And they go, what? And I go, take the baby, get help now. And my blood pressure shot up and nearly died. And that is, again, David, you talk about, seeing people in different roles and Ivor, there's got to be education about the diversity of impairments out there and how they affect people's bodies. And, I'll have doctors ask me, nurses, can you just stand up for a minute and step over here? And I'll be like, no, I can't. Can you just step on the scale for a minute? Nope. And when I broke my leg in the chair, they're like, oh, don't worry. We'll get this cast off and you'll be up walking anytime. And I go, whoa, that's all
a miracle.
I felt so bad for the nurse.
Put your hands on the screen.
So it's just funny. I really have become such an advocate about, I do a lot of anti-bias, implicit associations and stereotypes. I do a lot of speaking about that on campus and outside of campus, just becoming aware of the fact that disability and impairments are still left out of the conversation of diversity. We see, in the media down Reseda Boulevard, I don't know if you know, they had all these flyers about diversity in the media, diversity in film. They had every marginalized group except people with impairments. And that is often the case. It is not a group that people are like, oh, pick me. I want to be the disabled person, because there's so much stigma attached to identifying as having a disability. And I'd like to erase that, because we're pretty much all born living in disability. We need people to function. We can't do it on our own. And disability is really a social construct. So I don't experience disability unless I have negative attitudes or barriers. I have an impairment. But if you've got an elevator and in my house, I don't experience disability. I'm not kept from doing the things that I want to do. But I have a mobility impairment. And if you don't have access, then I do experience disability. And so I think the SPED department at CSUN has really embraced this discrit dialogue. And I love the fact that we are really trying to educate that, ableism is systemic, and our society is built to keep people who look different, think different, move different out of the mainstream. And I want to change that, because we all got funky bodies. I mean, we're all messed up. None of us are perfect. And there is this billion-dollar industry trying to sell us crud to make us feel, the whole advertising industry is designed to make us feel less than and not perfect, and to get us to buy things to be perfect. And I say, let's just embrace our funkiness and and get out there and engage and create opportunities and access. And that is what is passionate. And I heard that who is coming out to perform, and he is experiencing an impairment and he's doing it in his chair. Does anybody know he's older performer, and he has a degenerative impairment, but he's coming out and performing in his chair.
I don't know. I think Brian Wilson, maybe from the Beach Boys, performed in a chair recently. He's not very mobile. I don't know though.
Tony Bennett's Tony Bennett's still alive, right? I thought I saw. I think he's got advanced Parkinson's or dementia, but when he gets on stage and the music starts, he remembers everything and he's totally on it. But I just want to say something, Ellen. You gave a great shout out to the special education department, but it's really people like you that blaze the trail for many, and maybe a lot of people don't know this, but you on a national, international level, people know you. I mean, I quote you from the Chicago Tribune, an uncomfortable issue for Playboy, right? And so, I think 87, you reached out to Hugh Hefner to say, look, we're not represented. Now, I just want to put this in context, because in the 80s, I mean, we're in a different era today, right? You blazed that. And not only that, I want to read something from that, because it really, it's how do you deal with something like this? This is the quote. This is from Chicago Tribune, and they're quoting, I won't mention the name of the person, but it's an associate editor, I'm sure Ellen will know. This is precisely the kind of attention that Playboy doesn't need, said associate editor, whatever her name is. The only thing that people are going to say to us, have you seen what Playboy is doing? Girls in wheelchairs? I mean, you took on a fight of your life, right? I mean, this must have been, wonderful that it sounds like Hugh Hefner embraced it, but must be many people that you heard just some nasty things from, right?
Well, I am so glad that there was not Twitter and Instagram back then, because I think I could have been devastated by social media, right? People had to write me letters, which are less likely to write you hate mail than they were to tweet something about you. So at the timing of it, thank God, I wasn't bombarded with too much negativity. I got a little bit from people like that. Hef had just had his stroke, so he was really dealing with his own identity and sexuality, and how experiencing something that impairs him affected that. So when I contacted him, he was like, this is great. I had to do the whole test shoot. Like, do you look like a Playboy model? And I'm like, yes, blonde hair, blue eyes, big boobs, small waist. I'm all, and they're like, okay, you fit the criteria. So we're going to take the wheelchair out of the equation. And I think that's what I applaud them for, is they said, this shouldn't be such a big deal. You fit our criteria. I think people see impairments, especially physical disabilities, as stigmatizing, and that it must be a fetish if you find somebody with an impairment attractive. And for me, I contacted them when I was just 20, 21. I had just broken my neck in 83. We filmed in 86, and it didn't come out for a year because they were so afraid of the pushback. They were really worried about the pushback. And so it took almost a year for them to publish. And I really wanted to show that I had to confront all my demons about disability, the bias that I had about what disabled people could do and live. Because when I woke up in that hospital room, I thought my life was over. I was never going to have sex. I was never going to get married. I was never going to have a career. I could maybe get religious. And I didn't even know where all that stereotyping came from. I was lucky to move through it with the help of my friends at college and getting back into college. And I was going out for roles at the time. And even now it was like, we just want the disabled person. We don't care if it's male or real. We just want the disabled person. And what I thought, what they don't see about me, all they see is that I am this disabled person, which there are less sex differences seen between men and women in wheelchairs than men and women walking. Society doesn't see men and women with visible impairments as men and women. They see them as disabled people, and disabled people don't have sex. I was like, I'm a virgin. I want to have sex. What am I going to do to change the way people see me? And I was working in a modeling group at that time, and they had done some photos of me. And I thought, I was in advertising. Let me contact Playboy, see what they say. And they're like, they call me up. They're like, hey, we want to test shoot you. And I'm like, what do I wear? And they're like, nothing. And I was like, okay. I had no idea. I had no real clue what I was doing, but afterwards I had an amazing team with me, and I really was able to process my own stereotypes and fears about being a woman with a physical impairment. with the public. And I will say 90% of the public was incredibly supportive. I got some great mail from people that it changed their lives. It made them not ashamed. It encouraged them to go out, to admit of their impairments. And I got to, the problem I think that happened is that people saw me as the exception, right? So people think this is a compliment when they say, I don't see you as a person with a disability. I'm like, that's not a compliment. What you've done is you still stereotype people with disabilities as asexual, as less than as this. But because I'm not that, instead of changing your view of people with disabilities, you're going to put me over here as I'm not one. I'm like, I am. I'm proud of who I am. We all are dealing with different impairments. As Mark pointed out, when his wife was pregnant, she had a temporary impairment. Being super pregnant impairs your ability to go out, to walk, to stand up. So everybody deals with this. Let's not make it a big thing. But Playboy was amazing. Hef was incredible. The team I worked with was incredible. And I think had it been in this day and age, I think the haters would have come out of the woodwork and I probably would have been devastated. I think I was really lucky that to hate me, you had to actually write me a letter and I had to open it. And Playboy did a lot of reading the letters before they sent them to me. So I think they shielded me a little bit from people who might have really hated me.
The haters will always be out there, but don't you think we've made some amazing progress over the years? I mean, you look at things like the Special Olympics, how that has sort of been catapulted, thrusted into primetime TV, type of thing. And even like the Sports Illustrated, they have the athletes,
the Paralympians
buck naked or whatever, in those issues. I think they're using just disabled athletes and stuff like that. So got to admit, we're getting there.
We're making waves. We're definitely changing, and we're going in the right direction. And I'm really pleased at that. Paralympics, the Paralympic athletes. When I first went to the Paralympics to speak there, like Coke Village took its village down in Atlanta when they were here. But now we're getting, our Paralympic athletes are getting primetime views. The Special Olympics has its place, but the Paralympics. Athletes that are Paralympians and in the Paralympics are at the same scale as Olympic athletes. And what we got to get away from is the inspiration porn of, isn't this amazing that these athletes are doing this with their impairments? They're just doing what they do. It's amazing that they're athletes and that committed. But let's take the idea that it's because of their impairments that it makes them amazing. No, it's their commitment, their dedication, and their skills that make them amazing, just like the commitment, dedication, and skills of Olympic athletes. And it's a fine line. It's a fine line between being motivated by somebody and, looking at their life as being less and feeling better because, oh, look, she can do this. That means I can do it. It's like, I don't know. We all just do it because I really believe we're all dealing with something. Everybody's got baggage. Everybody's got something. And the more we just normalize the fact that we're all dealing with something, and if we can create access, opportunity, we can then really help people achieve their goals and not experience disability. And when I teach disability studies at CSUN, this is the amazing thing that I can say to my students. I ask all of them, like, how many of you have an impairment? And they'll all go, maybe 2 out of the 28 people, right? And I say, how many of you wear glasses? And 20 of them raise their hand. And I go, so you have a visual impairment? And they're like, what? I'm like, you have a visual impairment. Can you see without your glasses? They're like, no. I go, so when you don't have glasses, you experience disability. And it blows their mind and it makes them go, oh my God, you're right. I have a visual impairment. Yes, glasses just correct them and they just become commonplace. But we all have assistive devices that we use every day to make our lives easier. Just because my impairment is visible or more noticeable doesn't mean that the devices make me special. It just means I'm getting what I need to get the job done. Let's just look at it that way. Let's give people what they need to get the job done. That's equity. That's inclusion. And it's not a big deal if we stop othering people and putting those people them. So that's my thing. And Playboy was that first step. That was my,
Amen, Ellen. I just want to say that this is all the issues that you bring up are the reasons why we have to become a more diversified, a much more equity minded, because if students don't hear this firsthand, it doesn't have the impact, and so just what you're doing in the classroom. But I do have a burning question for you. Did you ever visit the mansion?
Oh, many a time. I went to the mansion many a time. Let me just say, the first night that I went to the mansion and met Hef, I left with my little black dress because I'd gone into the grotto and I stole a robe afterwards and went swimming and went to amazing parties at the mansion. And then my daughter, when she was 2, we started to go back because they'd have huge Easter egg hunts for the kids, an amazing Easter egg hunt. So from about 2 until the year that Hef died, we went every year. And the first year after I took her, and they have a beautiful zoo in the grounds, my daughter's like, I want to live here, Mommy. And I go, not going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think so,
no,
kid.
Not going to happen. But I got to go many a times, and he would have Sunday dinners and just a dinner and a movie. And we would go and meet with amazing people and have dinner and then watch a movie in the movie room. And I got to know them. And no, it wasn't fully accessible, but they had no problem popping me up and down the stairs and making sure I was comfortable and making sure the bathroom was big enough. And it was, I think Hef is often misunderstood. He was a huge family man and treated everybody who worked for him like family. And he was the first time I met him, I thought it was going to be, I don't know, cheesy and smarmy. And it really wasn't. It was really just down to earth, and everybody was just amazing. And his daughter, Christy, is great. And his son, David, whom you don't hear a lot about, is also pretty amazing. So it was a great group and a lot of fun. A lot of crazy nights at the mansion, but a lot of family events too. So it balanced. I got lots of pictures, Ira. I'll have to show you someday of all the celebs I got to meet and the artists and I got to meet Nick Cage and
oh my gosh.
Yeah, I got to meet so many amazing people and sit and talk. And you know who I really loved? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I got to sit and talk with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and he talked about how disabling it was to be so tall in high school and in life. Like, cars aren't made for him, seats aren't made for him. We had like a great conversation about, again, everybody is dealing with something. Like, my chair just happens to be visible, but we don't think about people that are tall or wider or shorter and how their life has to have accommodations to make it work.
Kareem, as you know, is very vocal and just talking about inclusiveness and diversity. And he's published articles, and he's doing some really phenomenal work.
Yeah, he is amazing.
I was just going to point out to Izzy, that's a famous rap star, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar?
Yeah, isn't that the famous? I'm a point of reference for Izzy, so she would have it.
He's a basketball player. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is a basketball player. He's really tall.
You're joking, right? Well, he's
not a wrestler.
Also a martial artist, activist,
an actor.
An actor, yes.
Mm-hmm. Bruce Lee. And
I didn't grow up here, so I don't know about basketball and stuff.
That's all right.
Trying to get Izzy to just a point of reference, context.
So, Ivor, what team did Kareem Abdul-Jabbar play for?
That would be the Los Angeles Stars, the hockey team. Would that be correct?
Yep, that's right.
I got to meet Wayne. Speaking of hockey, I got to meet Wayne Gretzky too, and he was really a great guy.
Wow.
He was married to a playmate at the time. But Izzy, you might know Kareem because he is, as Mark points out, he is a huge activist right now and doing a lot in inclusivity and bringing awareness to the systemic racism and the systemic sexism and ableism. And he's actually been quite vocal of late in the last few years, really coming out. And I would just like to say, I hope he remembers our conversation, because it struck with me about really helped me understand. I was young and dealing with my wheelchair and still trying to come to grips with it. And he was really talking and sort of set that seed of everybody's dealing with something. And people think that, oh, you're a basketball player and everything's easy. Life is so this, but he has to get special cars and special this and special that. And he often felt like he stood out and wasn't embraced and felt uncomfortable in crowds because it wasn't accommodating. And that really made me sort of begin my journey of understanding, it's not just one thing. Everybody is dealing with something. And for those that it's invisible, I think it's a lot harder to come out and to say, I need this accommodation. I have ADHD, I have ADD, I have depression, I have anxiety. I think that that's really much harder, whereas mine is out there. You see it. You're either going to treat me poorly and pat me on the head, or you're going to let me go first in line and buy me drinks and, be so happy that I'm out. And, I'll take that kind of, it's still ableism, but hey, if you're going to let me go first in line, I have no problem. Like, I don't want to wait for 20 minutes to get my drink. And that's great.
We're here with Professor Ellen Stohl, and it is the Voices from the Edge podcast, episode 3. An hour into the podcast, and I finally identify ourselves once again. That's just like podcast 101 stuff. Screwed that up big time.
When you have a great guest, you just got to go with it,
I know. You are a good talker.
I am. Thank you.
What courses are you teaching right now?
I teach the psychological foundations of learning and teaching for students that want to either be teachers, speech pathologists, school psychologists, and I teach disability studies. I coordinate the courses, so I work on curriculum, which is nice, and I get to mentor new faculty and really try to guide them into a more open way of thinking. I love my teacher education courses, and I'm not just saying this because Ivor is here, but it is my disability studies course that I think often has the most powerful impact on students. I get a lot of freshmen and sophomore that are still figuring out their identities. I get a lot of students that are dealing with invisible impairments and visible impairments or have family members. And the fact that we can talk about it openly and they can begin to not be ashamed of their impairment, that they can embrace it and begin to ask for accommodations and recognize that it's just part of who they are. I love that. I have students that are like, this is just changing my life. This is changing my life, these conversations. And I like to get them thinking. There are no right and wrong answers. That I think is the biggest thing when looking at it. There's not right and wrong. There's just discussions about it, is we have in California death with dignity, is that there's groups not dead yet for disabled people that don't want that. But so should we not allow people who are in severe pain at the end of their days have death with dignity, or should we, or, and I love the fact that it's a conversation. I don't know. I can't, I have no right answers for them. I just want you guys thinking about this stuff because it will come up in your lives, especially as we see now with COVID, right? People are having to make some hard decisions. I think the biggest problem is the perception of people with disabilities. When it comes to triage, if, it is something like 70% of all doctors underestimate the quality of life of people with who live with disability. And if that's the case, when it comes to giving a vent to me or to somebody who doesn't have an apparent disability, they may choose somebody else because they think that's, my life lacks quality. And that's what we got to change. That how you move doesn't dictate how the quality of your life. How you think doesn't always dictate the quality of your life. What you do with your life, with your brain, I think that's what dictates the quality of life. So that's one of the things I like to see changing. And I think teaching that at CISA really gets kids thinking about things like that. And I love that. I think that that's the most powerful.
Yeah. What do you think the best way is to get that message across? And I ask because, in one of my favorite films is the movie Murderball.
Yes.
And I mean, it covers so many of the topics that you've talked about: sexuality among, quadriplegics and paraplegics, athleticism. This is, if you don't know Murderball, it's a film about mostly men who play wheelchair rugby, I think you would call it. And yep. It's an incredibly intense sport. These are ripped athletes who play, most of them. And it is a full contact sport. And the film just kind of shows not just the sport and the athleticism and so forth, but the lives of the men who play. And
it's a documentary?
It's a documentary. And it is such an incredible way to look at disability studies. And the way I frame it is to ask people to reflect on their own lives and how these stories are everyone's stories. And I think that's Ellen's message in lots of ways.
Absolutely. Murderball is one of the best films out there. Friday Night Lights, which was a mainstream film and series, was also really good about a character who, was injured at football star. So I think television and film exposure, I think the key is it's not the whole story. Like, I would prefer that I was just I'm working on a book where I'm just a forensic psychologist and happens to be in a wheelchair. And, sometimes that comes up. Sometimes that doesn't. Sometimes you're driving the car buying groceries. Sometimes you're solving murders and belaying off a whatever, because I do all sorts of crazy things, and it's a podcast. And so I think that's the best way. The more we normalize it, the more access we create to get people out, the more we make them feel comfortable. I think, the media is key. Because that's where we see the images. It's great to have documentaries like Crip Camp and Murderball, but similar to organizations, and I see this on CSUN, like we have NCOD and we have the Center for Achievement. People start to think that because you have these, well, we addressed it here, it's still segregated. We need it to be integrated and inclusive, right? It needs to just be part of every conversation, part of every classroom, it just needs to be a part of life, as opposed to something special, something tokenistic, something just for them. And that is the only way to do it. Because
you can't cure the diversity problems with more segregation.
Yes.
We're seeing that these days. Yeah.
Intersectionality is huge. If you are a person of color and you have an impairment, you're like 60% more likely to not graduate from college, right? And people in poverty and people of color are more likely to get impairments because of the conditions that society has created through systemic racism, by not getting the supports and the nutrition and the things that people need. So we're almost perpetuating it, but let's just stop segregating. Let's just make it, not about the ADA law, but just because that's the way it is, right? I would like to see us get rid of having to do it because of this, but we have a DRESS office for our students with disabilities resources center. Like every instructor, if every professor and every teacher taught using universal design and were flexible and used multimedia, there wouldn't be a need for DRESS because students would already have their needs met, right? We shouldn't have to create. So so that's mine. So I think, David, making it normalized. I mean, it's great that we have Crip Camp and that we have Murderball. These are incredible documentaries. But I think sometimes it lets people see like, oh, yeah, I know that issue. Okay, done. Right. We need to see it in the everyday. And we need to get rid of the stories of, girl takes autistic boy to prom. Isn't that wonderful? It's like,
yeah, so well said. You capture it so well. And the only thing that gives me some hope is Izzy's generation, because you see it too, I'm sure. These students, they're fluid, they're open, they're accepting. It's the old people that have problems. It's the old boomers that, we're the problem in this thing. But they don't see that. They don't see the lines, and they're just wonderful generations. So
they really are. I mean, my daughter is 18, so I get to see, but like her friends all grew up with me. There's no, Zoe's mom's in a wheelchair. It's just Zoe's mom, right? Because they have just seen me at events, on the tall ships. They're hoisted me up my wheelchair on a rope onto the tall ships because that's just the way that we got onto her kids that all grew up with me don't even think about me having an impairment. My daughter, Mom, cook dinner. I want dinner. You don't cook it. Like the issues that we have are mother-daughter issues, not wheelchair issues, but people sort of see an impairment and it has to be all about the impairment. And it's not, it's not all about one thing. People are so many things, and that intersectionality, as you point out, we can't segregate these groups, right? We get this, we start getting Black Lives Matter, but this doesn't matter. No, all of us, Black lives do matter, but Black lives with impairments, LGBTQ Black lives. And I think that the Black Lives Matters really did embrace that. Like they were talking about, Black lives with impairments, the intersectionality of Black lives, because police are more likely, the people that are getting shot, not only are people of color, but they tend to have cognitive or psychological impairments as well. I don't know if you just saw the clip of the young Black man, a paraplegic, that was pulled out of the car by two police officers by his hair. And he kept saying, I'm a paraplegic, I'm a paraplegic, I'm a paraplegic. And he had to look, and I was like, he does have hand controls. He had portable hand controls in that car. And he was not nice to the cops. He was a bit defiant. But none of that matters, right? None of that is what's in play. It's how you treat people and do you listen? And they did not listen to the fact that he was a paraplegic. And he's like, I cannot get out of my car. I cannot get out of my car. And my husband was like, I'm like, well, what about his wheelchair? Isn't it in the back? And my husband goes, how many times did you drive your Mustang and leave your wheelchair at home because you didn't want to pop it in? You were just going to pick up something, right? Or go through a drive-through. I'm like, oh, you're so right. When I was nannying and I had to go pick up 4 of the kids, I would leave the wheelchair in the garage and just transfer over and drive. Can you imagine?
Did he get pulled over for a common traffic violation or
They thought he had drug money on him. He had left a house that was known to be drugs or something he had pulled out. And so they pulled him over, but he was, I mean, you could look at him, look at his legs again, like he was definitely a paraplegic.
Hey, honey, I'm leaving my wheelchair at home. Just going on a drug run real quick.
So, but again, they were literally dragging him across the ground because he cannot walk. And I have thought about that. A friend of mine was writing a script and because it happened to him, he got pulled over and they're like, step out of the car. And he can't step out of the car, right? And they're behind him because they're like, step out of the car and he can't. He's trying to reach for the placard.
Yeah.
Show them the placard. Like, but I can't reach for the placard. So his girlfriend got out of the car and she's trying to tell them. And they're like, no, we need him to step out of the car. And he's like, I can't step. They got guns drawn on him and his car door is open and he's afraid to reach for the placard to show him that he's, in a wheelchair and he can't get out. And, he's lucky he didn't get shot because that has happened. There has been, a lot of individuals with impairments. There was a young deaf boy that was shot because he was trying to sign and they thought he was grabbing something and they shot him. And so it's just, as David points it out, it's that integration and what you said, not more segregation, more integration and understanding. And that I have to say, the media is one of the key factors. That's one of the reasons I went to Playboy instead of, Vogue and Triumph Over Tragedy. I really wanted to focus on the fact that I was a woman. I was a sexual being, and not that Playboy is the be all and end all of being a woman. It has its own side issues of mess. But I can't fight for women's rights if I'm not seen as a woman. So as a person with a disability, I was fighting to be seen in that realm. And then now I can just Playboy all, and the, all the things that it doesn't do for women, et cetera. But, it's kind of hair of the dog that bit you. And, and I tell my daughter, it was a move to try to make a statement. And I was actually really lucky. The LGBTQIA community embraced me. They all sort of knew that I was using this platform to make a point. And that the point wasn't to do with, perpetuating perfectionistic images. It had to do with, being at the opposite end, a disabled person. And we don't ever see that in that realm. And if I can be in that realm, then I can shatter this whole BS that we still deal with, that Instagram perpetuates, that young girls like Izzy, I know your generation dealing with, a lot of those. As much as there are a broader sense of audience out there, I think there's also just pressure to look a certain way and be a certain way and dress a certain way and to, unrealistically do. And I just look at these kids that are shattered. There's more anxiety. I see more anxiety in Izzy's generation than I've ever seen, more depression than I've ever seen. And I think that comes from creating these unrealistic ideas of who you're supposed to be, as opposed to embracing the fact that we're all funky bodies and none of us are perfect, and that's okay. But it is, to me, devastating. So, Ivor, I agree with you. This generation has got such a passion and an openness, but I also think they're under such pressure from the social media that I want them to escape that and to be able to make the changes that I think will last forever. I love the fluid sexuality and the acceptance that this younger generation has about the LGBTQIA community. I mean, it just is incredible to me, but I'd like to see that with body shapes and sizes and et cetera. And we're doing it. Victoria's Secret, I don't know if you've seen the whole new diverse set of models they have, but who do they not have?
Yep.
Physical impairment. The Dove campaign.
No.
Who do they not have? Physical impairment and age. The other one is age. because we're pretty ageist as well in this
I
society.
think we are pretty ageist in this society. Did you see Lizzo recently, by the way, wearing a fishnet dress?
I did not see that.
Mhm.
Oh man, she's just it's out there. Let's just say.
I'll have to go check it out.
It's out there.
And back catalogs or back issues of Playboy from the 1980s might be available. I don't know. People could search the internet for that if they want to check out the old the centerfold from back in the day. Professor Ellen Stohl, you are amazing. I feel like we could keep going. However, as we tape this today, it's a Friday. We're getting into the Sabbath. How are you going to kick it off, Ivor? Maybe with like a shot of Slivovitz?
Yes, and some gefilte fish.
Naturally.
Of course.
Naturally. There you go. Stereotypical, I guess you could say. Anything else to touch on before we kind of wrap it up? And I'll tell you what, Professor Stohl, we're going to have to get you back on in the not too distant future so we could talk about just so many other things that come to mind right now that we don't have time for today.
Well, I would love to. I really enjoyed it meeting Izzy and to see David and Ivor again and to meet you, Mark. A great opportunity just to talk about things that there's so much out there and so much that we can do. So I love being able to share my crazy experiences and to, try to just get us to think a little more openly, a little more accepting, and to create really inclusion. I'm just all about letting people, unless you're a serial killer or a sociopath, that, I guess I'm not so inclusionary with that. So I'll end with that. I don't know how to include the serial killers into my open arms of society.
Say no more, Professor.
So much, Ellen. You're an incredible human being. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you all very much.
I would love to take your class.
Come, Izzy, come, and you can just come and sit in anytime. You just email me and I'll send you the link. And if you don't want to take the class and do the assignment, you can just come hang out and chat with us because we're a really open group, and I just love it.
Izzy, it's a SPED 200, and I know the department chair. Pretty cool guy, and I think he can get you in.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
This has been Voices from the Edge. Nice.
Oh, that felt like it was on the edge.
All right, that's it.